All right, welcome. This is our third week of doing office hours. Um, and just to give you a small little recap of what's been happening the last couple of weeks is we have been creating a Diamond Hands account in Solana specifically. That's the blockchain we're working with. And this Diamond Hands account is basically, think of it as, baby's first staking program. The idea is we have an NFT or some sort of token that we want to put off for a specific date, and we more or less give our token to a program, and it enforces the hold time until, whenever we set it, and then we can go ahead and retrieve it at that later date. Um, and it looks like my kilobits per second is doing fine. Trying to think of anything else. I will be drinking some water. It is, office hours. I'm just chilling at the couch today. Roommate's gone. Nothing too crazy today. Um, but yeah, as we go along, feel free to ask any questions. I'm just kind of hanging out, doing some coding. Um, Today we are working on because the last two times we basically created and finished up the Solana program in Rust, and now we're going to make the TypeScript library for it. And this is important, even though I don't think it's as fun as actual Solana development, but it's really important because if you want people to actually use your program, you're going to want to be able to put it in code that people can kind of just use out of the box. And without that, people aren't going to use what you make. And that's kind of why we make these things. So let's go ahead. Let's take a look at where we left off and go from there. All right, first thing I like to do is check the balance of my dev wallet. I do that just because it does take a decent amount of dev Solana to actually run and test these things. Looks like we got 8. And I like to have more rather than less. Actually, there was one point where I actually scripted in my test script that it would drop 2 Solana each time. There's a limit to how much you can have. I don't quite know where that is. I want to say it's like 12, but I could be wildly off. All right, we're just going to run this. Anchor, actually, everything should have been set up, so we might just be able to say TS node test and then tests. And then hopefully, all right, so no, that didn't work. Let's see what it broke on. Anchor provider URL is not defined. All right. Um, how do I grab the program? Main anchor set provider. Provider is the environment. Program is get program. What if we do anchor test? Let's play a game of what did we break last time since this time. Because everything should be working okay. Because I remember distinctly that we tested this right before we left last time. And last time it was interesting. I added in as just like a last little piece because I was going to do it anyway, but I figured we had just enough time to do it. Is we created a way to rederive your account address from your wallet and then the NFT or token that you're storing in the account. That's important so you don't actually ever have to like save that new wallet address ever. You never have to remember it. It is derived from, what your, let's see exactly what it's derived from. This is going to be in Diamond Hands TS. Yeah, it's used from the owner and then the mint of the NFT or token that you are using, and that's how you're going to be able to find out, what's there. Another thing you could do if you want to flesh this out a little bit is you could create kind of like an indexed account where you create the account and it basically just acts as a list of all the things that you have staked currently. However, we're not going to do that this time because we don't really need it. We're just going to know that we staked X NFT. There should be probably a function that we should probably create at some point to be able to find all the NFTs that we've staked, but I don't think that might be in the scope for the day. We'll see. Okay, and for some reason this worked. Oh, I know why. Because we're using, and that's good. The asset is still frozen, and it should have failed. So good. We tried to thaw it before we get thawed. And the reason why the TS node tests failed is because we use Anchor provider environment. And if we're not running it from Anchor test, then it's not going to be able to find the provider. We changed that up a little bit when we actually make the TS the TS API, and by TS I just mean TypeScript. And we're gonna just go put this here. All right, not OBS. All right, so we're gonna go into our Diamond Hands account, and we have this. I'm not a huge fan of object-oriented programming. I try to keep everything out of objects as much as I can. The reason being is it's really, really easy to over engineer an object to be this everything, all encompassing, data structure that has all these functions. And that's helpful for some things, but I find it better to write data structures. And this is me coming from like a Rust C background. I like my data structures to be just pure data, and then we can call functions that use those data structures outside, and that makes it a lot easier because then we don't have to deal with instantiating objects and manipulating them. This way we just know what data we're working with, and we can call functions and write new functions kind of on the fly that will help us out with that. And I found that actually being quite nice because I've noticed that it's really easy to kind of over engineer an object when you're doing object oriented programming. I like to keep things as simple as I can and as lean as I can, especially when you're developing things and you might not know exactly how it looks at the end. And there's this really good talk I'm going to go ahead and throw up in the chat. I want to see if I can find it real quick. There's a lot of videos on object-oriented programming. There's one specifically that I wanted to find, but I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Channel videos history. There we go. OP maybe. let's see. Yeah, this is it. I'm just gonna post it up in chat because I do think it's helpful. And this is, if you get to the point in your development career where you can, talk about nuances and, figure out what paradigms of engineering are the best, that's that's when you know you're probably in too deep. But the reason I prefaced all that is because we are going to use one class here, and I do it simply to keep everything together. And I really shouldn't. But it's kind of what I've been doing for these things, and it's the reason classes can be nice, especially is if you have, since we're going to be giving out this API to people who might want to use this Diamond Hand program and ones who specifically want to implement it into their website, giving them a class or an object that just has the functions that you need in them and really nothing else is helpful. So that's kind of why we do this. But yeah. Oh, let's see. All right. And again, to not bore you with a whole bunch of actual programming, I'm just yoinking other code that I've made. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to, this was from a coin flip program I made. We're going to call this Diamond Hands Provider. Oh, and quick tip, if you're using VS Code, instead of doing Control H, or Control Find Replace, what's actually better is if you go to rename symbol. For me, that's F2, but I have the Mac that has the touch bar, so F2 is not that handy to use. But what's nice about this is, you might have other things named similarly, or if you're not careful with how you're finding and replacing, you can really fuck up some stuff. If you just do the rename symbol, it changes everything in all the files, I believe, that reference it, depending on your programming language, of course. Diamond. All right. So I give it the provider, like the anchor provider, and this is important because this is what actually signs your transactions. And I think we went through that all last time. They're kind of weird to set up, but once you have a provider, you basically can sign transactions. And then the second part you need is the actual program, and that is what we have written in Rust. This is the program that lives on the blockchain, and then we go to this, which is called our IDL, and this is more or less what Anchor provides for us to be able to call these functions with these data structures right from the web. So that's the important part, and that's more or less what we're writing with this Diamond Hands TS file. Is basically just a wrapper around that to make it look a little bit nicer, act a little bit nicer. So this is going to be, we're just going to call this program, and it's going to be an Anchor IDL. The reason I like TypeScript is, of course, it's a typed language, and if you screw something up, it tells you right away. The problem I have with JavaScript, of course, is, without that typed portion, you can make a lot of errors and not know why. Okay, so create This is going to be a private constructor because we more or less want to make this as easy as possible. And that requires some asynchronous functions, and you can't have asynchronous functions in a constructor that I know of. So we just do this private, and then we have a create function. And so it takes in the provider that we give it, and then it basically calls the program from the blockchain. And this get coin program is right here. And this get program function is something that we haven't written yet, but we're going to in just a second. Let's see what we may need. Okay, get program. We're going to put this down here as a little helper function. I think I have sol helpers here. We can put it in here just to build this up a little bit. But we're not going to because we want everything together. So we're going to go ahead and put this as an export get program. And really, we can just yoink this and put it into our this function, because there's really no need to reinvent the wheel here. This is what this function does. So basically, get coin program, as we saw last time, Anchor actually will save your IDL to an account, like a data account on Solana, and you can actually retrieve that. And that's what this does for us, which is super nice, because then we don't have to keep, just copying and pasting the IDL file from website to website. We're keeping track of that. This just pulls whatever it is. The caveat, of course, with that is we have to keep updating the Anchor program IDL each time we make an update to the program. So we're going to go ahead, await. We're going to need async for that. This program ID, of course, is this Diamond Hands ID. And then same for here. Yeah, so basically this just fetches the program IDL, and we'll see how that's important in a second. And then we're going to have two functions here. We're going to have get, again, we're going to rename this symbol, get diamond. Is that what we want to do? Yeah. And notice I don't have a whole lot in this structure. It's really just a wrapper to be able to call these functions and set that all up. As you'll see, I actually split out most of the functions that actually manipulate this Diamond Hands data out into their own separate functions. The only reason I do this this class, and again, it is object oriented, just to keep all of the setup kind of under wraps, so people don't actually have to really know what's happening there. They just need to call Diamond Hands provider dot create, and then they use that to pass into all these other functions. So get coin account is going to be get Diamond Hands account. This is relatively important because this is basically going to be our function that we call to fetch the newest data structure that lives on the Solana blockchain, the data account that we are working with. And this is going to be we're we're going to either have it as a, see, I may have jumped ahead of myself. Because what I should have done first, yeah, we're going to do that. So like I said, I like things, and just to let you know what we're doing, we will come right back to this get diamond hands account. But the reason I want to stop is because of this, because this is going to be of type diamond hands account. But we haven't made this data structure yet. And we're going to use our good friend an interface to figure this out. So interface is just a way to describe what data you're expecting in an object. From my background, this would be like C in structs, or structs in C or Rust. And actually, if we go to our IDL, which is diamond hands JSON, and we put it over here, this is what I tend to do, is I have my diamond hands account, and then I'll go to diamond hands, and I should have, I forget what the data structure is called. They're usually at the very bottom here. Kind, struct. These are the params. We don't want that. Unfreeze params. Counts. All right, we're going back to our lib and seeing what it's called. If I didn't tell you what this test function is, this thing is extremely helpful. Basically, it allows you to run like micro tests as you're developing. So let's say you may not know exactly how Rust will handle a float value or something like that. You can actually type in a test, press run test, and it'll run right in your console without, it will take the functions of whatever you pass in from your other pieces here, but it doesn't have to do the whole upload thing. Obviously you can't like call something from the, I don't believe you can call something from the blockchain here in the same context, but like for little micro tests just to see how this is going to run without having to wait for it to actually work, this thing is extremely helpful. Or like seeing what the size of a data structure is, right? This is going to be helpful. All right, so yeah, it's called the diamond hands account. Why? God, I'm overly clever. So we call that's the name. That's the account, but I want the actual data struct. Oh, yeah, here it is. So what we have here, and I pretty much just do this one for one. So one thing to know is, this is something Anchor does for us, and it's really nice. See that in Rust, everything is snake case, and we want to keep it that way. Of course, the structure is, camel case with the first letter capitalized. And of course, in JSON, everything is camel case. So it actually does the transition for us. So when in doubt, one, look at the IDL, but two, take what you think a snake case would be in camel case, and that will probably be your answer. All right, so this is going to be web3.public key. And again, we're just defining the types here. So we got owner, diamond hands account, which is a self pointer back to this data structure. We have the nonce, which allows us to rederive the actual account information, or the gatekeeper information, I should say. Gatekeeper, just again, it's a self pointer, so we don't have to rederive it each time we have to use this thing. Oh yeah, Diamond Hands nonce, right? Because like I said before, we actually derive our Diamond Hands account address, so that's important that we have that nonce. And then we have the gatekeeper nonce, which probably should have called the gatekeeper nonce to stay with um, naming conventions. The vault is, of course, this is owned by the gatekeeper, and this is where it's a token account, and this is where we keep our NFT or tokens or whatever. Thought is Boolean, and then date to unfreeze is a BN. Because any U64 is a BN, everything else is a number. And BN just stands for big number. Once you get into the higher bits, there's a little bit of extra special logic that you need to do to actually um, work with it. All right, so that's our Diamond Hands account. Cool. So now what we can do is, now this is here. And the reason I do this is because I like to give them the ability to either pass in the um, Diamond Hands DHA key. I like to give them the opportunity to pass in the key if they just have the key, or they can pass in the entire account, and you'll kind of see why this may be helpful. And then should update is basically if they pass in this Diamond Hands account, it's just going to pass through and return that unless should update is true. And again, a couple reasons why we do that, and we'll see that in a second. So DHA key. So with TypeScript, it's kind of weird. There isn't like a good way to check what type of data structure it is. So we kind of do something cheeky here, and we know that the Diamond Hands account has a it might have an owner. We'll do thawed. So here's how we can check. So we basically cast it as a Diamond Hands account. If it is in fact a Diamond Hands account, this thawed will be non-null. It will be a true or false. See, that's not great either. We'll do nonce. There we go. So basically, if this is non-null, this is going to be true. So if this is not true, like if DHA key is actually just a public key, it's not going to have a field called nonce, which means it will pass through here. It's not a very fun workaround, but it works, and I'm tired today and I don't feel like fixing it. All right, return await. And here's where the program comes in handy, and this is why I kind of keep this all together. So I can take our program here, and this.program.account. So the program, or an IDL, it has a list of counts, has kind of a list of functions you can call, and then of course data structures. The account we want to call here is going to be the Diamond Hands account, of course. So we're just going to go ahead into our IDL and make sure that we have that correct account, and I think it's just called Diamond Hands account, right? Right, but is it capital? I don't believe it is. Account. Um, I'm not sure why they do this, but we know the account is a Diamond Hands account, and I believe they actually lowercase this first letter. And since the program doesn't actually know what type of IDL this is, there's really not a good way of checking it. But basically we fetch it, and then, so we already know DHA key is of type Diamond Hands account, and then we grab the Diamond Hands account. And no real reason to renonce it or anything because this is the derived information already. Return await, and again, this is the pass-through piece that I was telling you about. You'll see why I do this. But basically, if should update, if they say true, we'll actually fetch whatever the latest is. If not, we're just going to pass whatever we get here. And then lastly, this dot program dot account dot diamond hands account dot fetch DHA key, basically as a public key, and then we're going to recast it as a Diamond Hands account. So that's how we grab that. And why I find that important is because, actually, I don't know why I find that important. I forget my train of thought. Find flipper account we don't need. But the reason you know what? I don't even like this here because it doesn't actually even require, it requires a program. That's why. So what we're going to do, and I don't actually save the, no, because what we could do if we want to go like purely, and this is kind of why I'm taking the approach I am. If we want to take a purely object-oriented approach, I would probably do something like account and then have it of, Diamond Hands account. And then basically update this every time you make a change to it, and it's all within this nice little structure. Reason I don't is because you get into semantics of how do we keep this thing updated and up to date? Do you want the end user to be able to do this or not? And I went through all these things until I settled on like, okay, this is what I needed to do. So that's why I keep this, very, very simple. And I just wrap these up as more of a, as more of a nicety than anything else. So we're actually going to put this down here because I think it's important to keep these things separated. And, I'm getting better at this as I ramble on and try to teach it too. All right, so yeah, let's just do that. And of course, we can't do this anymore, meaning what we need to do is we basically need to pass in a provider. And this provider takes that role now. And now it's completely separated, and I like that. So we're going to go ahead, defines and provider, and now functions. All right, so you may have noticed that last time, we didn't really touch this file at all, and that's fine, because what we did, and this is kind of the exciting part, is when we were writing the test, I was actually kind of pseudo doing a lot of the work for us already in terms of writing the functions that we're going to need. Um, so we can actually do just pretty much a lot of copying and pasting from our test file, because those functions are valid to have here. So export find diamond hands account. And this is important because this basically just like derives the account for us. And we could probably write something real quick. For const check I'm getting ahead of myself, but I think this is going to be helpful in the future. So basically here, all we want to do is check if oh boy. I love VS Code, but it definitely makes my spelling shortcomings obvious. Check account exist exit with a all right, so this is real easy. We basically just go ahead and put I suppose, and we're gonna need these two things. And okay, we're gonna finish it just because I think we should, but we certainly don't have to. But basically, count equal get diamond hands account, and we're gonna give it the provider and then the DHA key, and we're going to await, but we're also going to wrap this in a try. You know what? Turn new promise resolve and reject. And this is actually going to be a lot nicer to do it this way. So we don't need you anymore. Basically, we're going to go ahead and grab the account. We try it because I believe it straight up fails if it can't find anything. And this is just a nice way to provide, hey, this doesn't exist, or it does exist. There's not like a good way other than just calling to the database or calling to Solana and saying like, hey, you got any info on this? And if it says like, bro, what the fuck you talking about? It's just going to throw an error. And that's how we know like, yeah, nothing's there. So if this is the case, we're going to go ahead and reject the, actually, we're not even going to reject it. We're going to resolve it to true or to false, does not exist. And then return account equals, then we do resolve account equals does not equal null. There. So all this is saying is basically we never actually have to reject it, because if it fails, that means we got our answer. If it succeeds, we got our answer. So that might be helpful. Again, I'm a little scatterbrained right now, so I that may or may not be helpful. We'll see. Now back on to our first bit. Um, when we see our tests, and I don't think we really need to look at this right now, nor do we need that. Ooh, look at all that real estate. Okay, so when we go to test, we kind of see what our first thing is, and that's usually the um, you know, first function we want to do. Um, is we want to be able to create a Diamond Hands account, right? So this is going to be important to us because it's the first step in being able to actually store something. Um, so we go back to our Diamond Hands. So we go export const create diamond account equals. All right. So there's a little bit of setup here that we need to do, and there's a way I like to end it, and we'll kind of see why I ended the way I ended. All right. So the first thing we're going to need is the program, and this is why I'm pretty adamant on having a providers, because that provides everything we need all in one area. Provider. And now what else do we need here? It kind of depends. So I think what we're going to do is we're just going to, we're just going to pop in, because from the provider, we have access to our wallet, the one that we are calling for, which is great. The one thing we do need to specify is the mint. So this is going to be a web3.public key. And if we go back to our tests, we're just going to yoink all of this. And this is the benefit of writing a decent test to begin with, is now we can go ahead and see what we need to pull from here. So NFT, we don't need the actual token account, I believe. No. We just need the mint. Or do we want to pass in the token account? You know what? We're going to pass in the token account. See, this is one of those conundrums of, what is more likely for someone to pass in? And I'm going to say they're more likely to have access to the entire token account. So like this is one of those questions of like how helpful do you want to be in a function? And some people say like, oh, you only need pure functions where each function does one thing. I think holding to that rule entirely is sometimes counterproductive because then at what point do you stop? Do you have a function to add two numbers? And I would say you probably shouldn't do that. So let's see how we do it, right? So we basically create an NFT, and that gives us SPL account info. So we're going to use that as well. We're going to do account token account. and this is going to be an SPL dot account info. Yep. So this is like when you create any sort of NFT or SPL token, SPL token. You're going to go ahead and these are all the piece of information you're going to have. It's the address, mint, owner, amount, and these are going to be helpful. So we're going to just keep that here, and then we're also going to specify the amount as a question, and this is going to be a BN. Reason I call it a question is because without this amount passed in, I'm just going to assume they want everything in this account to be transferred over. So we have our DHA and our DHA nonce, because remember, we actually derive our Diamond Hands account by using Find Diamond Hands, well, this. So Find Diamond Hands account, and this needs to be async. And we use our provider, and this is where the naming convention gets a little wonky. It's provider.wallet. And we could call this, DHA provider to make it, a little bit nicer here. Just because then we don't have this, provider.wallet.public key. And now we have this token account .mint because we do it based off of the mint. Find Diamond Hands account. Okay, great. Yeah, if you yeah you're gonna grab the token account. Sorry, I was just thinking about like how you do it, and the reason I say it this way, and I know I'm going back and forth, but if we go SPL token accounts, what this does is it pulls up basically all of the associate account addresses we have. So like this isn't the mint. This is, or is this the mint? Oh man, I keep kind of screwing this up. SPL token account. So we're just going to do help. Account info. And then we do that. And then we do this. Yeah, that would make sense. So basically, when we said SPL token accounts, it lists all the accounts that are, associated with my particular dev wallet. And this top one is what we just picked. And basically, that's our associate token address. And then if we call get token account, basically, it gives us the address, the mint, the owner, the state, and all that fun stuff. So that's what we're going to use as our basis to actually pass something in here. And of course, amount. Sorry for talking in circles there. It happened to make sense. And boy, did I already go through 50 minutes? Oh man. All right. So we have our DHA, we have our DHA nonce, again, Diamond Hands account, and then the nonce, because that is derived. Now we need to get our gatekeeper, and we do that basically from the DHA, and then of course we just grab the this, and not provider, program ID. So again, we rederive something and we grab a nonce. And then this was one of the helper functions that we have used before. So when I write these APIs, I like to just kind of include everything that's needed that's not part of a release package. And at some point, I might release a Solana helper package because I think it is helpful. But until then, we're just going to basically yoink these helpers, and we're just going to put it right into our file here just to have it there with us, because then I don't have to reference a file if I were to ever release this as, you know, a package in itself. The fewer the dependencies, I think, the better, because dependencies are a huge pain in the ass. So now we have find program address. These things should all be fine. This doesn't need to be helpers anymore. Get token and should create. And yes, I know there's a function like this, but I went through and created my own. This is going to be DHA provider dot provider. And then, of course, we grab our mint, which is going to be our token account. And we're even going to go one step further. Account to diamond hands. Yeah, why not? So get associated token account. We pass in the gatekeeper. And why we do this true, because this allows us to go outside the curve. And that's good because that's how I believe program accounts are actually defined, is they need to be off curve, and that's how they're like actually separated. So that needs to be set to true, that it will just fail or it won't if you have that to false. So, or just not even there. Trigger the trade, I guess. And this is going to be DHA. Fine. DHA provider dot program RPC. Okay, the diamond hands nonce. It's the DHA nonce. Yep. The nonce. This is for the gatekeeper. It's the nonce. Yep. Date to unfreeze. We should probably also put that in the constructor array. So we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to make that into a date, just to make it easier on, you know, their end, the user end. To unfreeze, and this is going to be a type date. And just to make this a little bit more robust, because why not, we're going to put days to freeze. And this is just going to be a number. How many days do you want to freeze it for? And we're going to go ahead and let date to thaw date equals date to unfreeze. If that's null, we're going to go days. How do we want to do this? Thaw date. Date to unfreeze. If not, it's going to be date dot now and new date dot now plus and again we might just add in some helpers here. Again, there are plenty of libraries that help with timing. I'm just too lazy to look up any of them. So we're going to go ahead and put const date to Unix. It's going to be times 1,000. Const seconds to minutes equals 60 minutes to hour 60, then hour to day. It's going to be 24 const and then const seconds to day. All right, now that we have all those fun things, we can go ahead and again, since TypeScript is compiled, we can actually keep it underneath there. But since it falls into more of the defined, we're going to put it up here. Defines. Again, this is my C in Rust peeking through here in terms of code structure. New date.now times sex today times days to freeze. And we're going to also make that into a, if they don't answer anything, we're just going to say 30 days. And actually, we really shouldn't do that either. You know what? We're going to make it 1 day, just in case they happen to screw up. The worst thing that happens is they lose it for a day. All right. And then the last thing we need to do is times this by the sec t date to Unix. Because this is the amount of seconds per day. And this is milliseconds per day. And actually, let's just do this. Milliseconds to day is going to be that times date to Unix. There. All right. So basically, this creates a new date, and JavaScript's date doesn't go off of Unix time. It does everything in milliseconds since epoch. So that's why we do this. All right. So now that we have date to thaw, okay, great. So always going to be a date, and then we go ahead and put this in here. And this is to get time, because get time is going to be get time is going to be it's going to give us back this millisecond representation. It might as well be dot get milliseconds per epoch, but then we go ahead and type in Unix, date to Unix. So this is in milliseconds, but everything we do in Solana is going to be in Unix time, which is by the second. So we need to adjust for that. And then amount, we're going to do amount. If that's not the case, we're going to do the token account to diamond hands. Fuck it. I like token. I've been swinging a lot today. Token account. And again, I remembered my own token account. And token amount. And this is already in BN mode. I mean, it's a U64, so that's fine. That's what we want. All right, diamond hands, DHA, gatekeeper, vault. Great. Owner vault, this is going to, of course, be token account address, because the address is the actual like associated token account. The owner is going to be and this is who's like signing for it. We could probably just say token account I believe I want to say owner. Yeah, we could do that, and we might just to prove a point. But how I would normally do this is I would make this into a token account or not token account, DHA provider wallet public key. So that's what I would normally keep it as, but since they kind of have to be the same thing because we do check it back in the Solana program as well, this should work equally okay. So I'll keep both in there because they both basically mean the same thing. They're passing in the same owner. Token programs, token ID, system program, system ID. Okay, great. Now, this should return true all the time. But basically this passes in like a function. It's like, hey, while we're doing our chores, we might as well, throw this in there. Think of this as like you're driving around and you have a list of errands to run. And like mostly like this is the grocery shopping, but what happens if you have to make a return at the Gap? These instructions are extra things that you bundle with all of your errands, like this entire function. So if one fails, they all fail. They are executed as a group. So we go ahead and create the gatekeepers associated token account address from here, and we do that for a lot of different reasons. but it's easier just on the client side. As long as you kind of know what you're doing. And again, that's why we create this API, so people don't have to like go in and research how your program worked. It just kind of works out of the box. And then this last line is who pays for it. Is Vault correct? Yes. And that should be it. That should be everything we need in this. So now what our test should look like is we're still going to create the NFT, but we're not going to need any of these. And we're not going to need any of this anymore. What we're going to need is a let's DHA provider equals diamonds dot d dot create. I wonder if I have to put new. And this is going to be with our provider, and that's it. It's just a provider. Does everything else for us, does all the heavy lifting. Maybe I don't have to do that. Maybe I have to do a wait though. For sure. Okay. So now we have our DHA provider. We can basically go ahead and call creating provider. Now we do diamonds dot create diamond hands account, and we can basically input what we want here. Create SPL, we're going to make 100 just because that sounds like a better number anyway. And now we have to add in our provider and then our token account, which is going to be this NFT. And then days to freeze, we're just going to keep it at that, 3 days. And that should be it. And we're going to leave everything else blank. And that's it. That's all we have to do. And the last reason I kind of, or what I like to do out of these functions is I basically go ahead and return, and this is why we have that pass through, is the get diamond hands account. And then DHA provider, and then I go ahead and type in the DHA, right? Is that what it's called? Yep. Or DHA, and we're going to go ahead and wait for that. We actually don't need to do that. And that should be it. And should update, we're going to put true, even though we don't have to. It's just a decent habit to get into. So basically, anytime you call this function, it's going to return the latest version of the Diamond Hands account. And that's just kind of like a nice little feature to be able to make sure that you always have the latest one. And now we can do let DHA account equals this. So now instead of having to call this, we can just do, console.log DHA account. So with any luck, yeah, we're, no, we don't have to do that yet. we can go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and quickly fix these squiggly lines because that's our only job in programming, is to make the compiler happy. But we can go DHA account, and since we know what this is, right, it's of type, well, it should be of type, yeah, Diamond Hands account. For this vault, we're going to do it DHA account, and we can put vault. Super nice. And then for these, we're going to fix this in a second, but we're going to go DHA, and we should also put this in a try catch because it's going to fail. And who likes to just fail out of a program? Okay. And then we're going to do kind of the same thing here, just get our squigglies to go away. And DHA account dot Diamond Hands account, right? Just want to double check this is correct. Diamond Hands TS, yeah, we call it Diamond Hands account up here. That's going to be interesting. Is that what we call it? Yeah, Diamond Hands account. All right. And do that. So this is why I do all the self-saving, is because like if you just pass through this information, it gets a lot nicer than having to like recall it everywhere and re-deriving these informations from like one central point. And plus, keeping those sub-pointers is pretty necessary for most checks that you do within the program. All right, so we got all the squigglies go away. Let's go ahead and test it and see if everything works. It should. And then what we're going to do is we're going to quickly put this unfreeze account into a function, and then I'll basically make two helpers just to check to see that we have the correct amount of bytes. I might not even do that because yeah, I'm not going to do that because this is really only meant for testing. And then that leads us into kind of a fun next week where we'll actually start making the React app that allows us to, pick an NFT and actually freeze it, and we can see that happen. And hopefully we can actually set it up so it will be unfrozen right before the following stream. And then we'll find some other project to do. I think I want to do something with semi-fungible tokens because it's something I've been working on, or something of that nature. But we'll see. Whatever you guys think will be good, we'll go with that. All right, so we're finalizing the transaction. Send some data. Now we're going to see. All right, didn't like something. We're going to figure out why. Unable to compile TypeScript. Does not exist on count void. Does that mean it got to this point? Is there something odd here? All right, when in doubt, we're just going to go ahead and yoink all this. Let's see what that does for us. So yeah, unfortunately, we have to run that test again. And we'll see what's coming up. Maybe this thing failed and it returned a null, but we should have gotten an error program. So I think it was actually just compiling error, which we will figure out. Boolean export diamond hands account. Let's see. It's probably going to be some issue in get diamond hands account. Nonce diamond hands account to fetch. Yeah, it all looks fine. While we're waiting for that, we might as well just start tapping out the next function. Export, I want to say it was called unthaw. I could be wrong. Soul helpers tests. And what is this function called? Unfreeze assets. All right. So we got that basic thing done. You can go ahead and yoink this. Oh. Oh, we have to freeze our assets for at least 100 hours. Huh. It's probably not a great. We'll keep it. Why not? I don't really feel like changing it, but we could change this, and this is something that is internal to our um, Rust program itself. We're gonna go ahead, put this here, and this, of course, can fail. I guess all of them can fail, and we're going to allow the programmer to catch if they fail or not. We don't necessarily need to do that. And this is going to have pretty much everything that we had from here. That program.rpc unfreeze accounts amount. I forget if we. Okay, so here's where one of those helper tools comes in, and it's actually right here. Great. So we're gonna go ahead, keep amount, date to unfreeze. We don't need that token account. Yeah, we'll keep the token account. Because the thing is even if you transfer out all of your information from a token account, you still keep that account forever. So if you had like the NFT of let's say you had an NFT of a Solana Monkey business and you sold that Solana Monkey business, well, that particular mint account will still exist for you. Its value will just be 0. Just to let you know. So you have it in spirit. Token account. And since we have the token account, this will actually be kind of nice or easy. So, this is why I have this pass through, not because of before. Because now what we do is we take this exact same thing to where we can pass in the key or the Diamond Hands account itself. Then we let DHA equal get Diamond Hands account. We're going to go ahead and await for that. And we're going to pass in this. So if they pass us the actual structure, this just passes it back to us, which is great because then we don't have to actually wait for that await to happen. It just works. And if they just give us a key, then we wait for it to do that. And speed, it kind of matters sometimes, and in this factor it won't. But whatever you can do to speed it up a little bit. DHA key was. Is that what you're yelling at? Oh, right. We need the provider as well. All right. And sometimes I'll even say, let program equal provider.program, just to make it a little bit nicer. But again, I try not to save as many variables unless it's way too verbose. So now we have our DHA, which is going to be a Diamond Hands account. And DHA dot vault should be of type pub key. Perfect. And we're going to see if we run into that same answer. So this token account is going to be interesting. So we're going to let vault amount equals our vault info, vault token info equals get SPL account. Await, again, this is our little helper function we wrote before. Pass it in our provider dot provider, and we pass in the mint, just this token account dot mint, and we pass it in the vault information, which is going to be our DHA dot vault. And what this does is this allows us to go into this. So this vault token information is now the vault the gatekeeper has. And we can do amount. So if the amount is null, we're going to take the entire amount from the vault token. And we're going to call this DHA account. Dot Diamond Hands account dot gatekeeper, and NFT is going to be token account dot address, and then we're going to have the owner, which again we can just put token account dot owner. And we don't need any signers or instructions because, again, if we remember, the person who actually signs for this transaction to happen is the gatekeeper, and we've already given him authority. So let's see if this works. Go ahead and we're going to keep those. DHA account dot vault. I'm not sure why that failed before. Let's see why that may have failed. The other thing that we can probably do while we're just waiting is get a different way of getting this provider. And the reason we might want to do that, if we go to file open, solely coin flip. The reason we might want to do that is because then we can um, basically get Solana provider. Let's see if I have this in my Solana helpers. Oh, I do. Neat. Is it the same as that? It should be. Tests. And so instead of that, we're going to go ahead. And this will allow us to basically test this script without having to have Anchor run. So helpers.get Solana. Um, and then we need the owner wallet. Right. See, that's kind of the bummer about this. Let's not worry too much about it. But we should. Boo. All right. We're just going to yoink this because we're going to be here longer than I want. And now we go ahead and grab our owner provider, which is going to be here. And then owner wallet. Let's see. They really like to hide the node wallet away, but with any help here, we should be able to just run this TS node now without actually needing Anchor. TS node test. Yeah, okay. That did it. Hooray. We solved that. And what's nice about starting to switch over to this is when we're actually on React, we're going to do something like, I think it's window.solana or something like that. And that actually gives us our provider right here. We'll have a function for that. Okay, neat. That worked. Beekeepers NFT, we're still going to sleep. We don't really need to sleep that long anymore. We'll just sleep for 1,000. And we're going to do this, but now we are going to, instead of calling this function, we are going to go ahead and call diamonds dot unfreeze assets, and we're going to say, again, any sort of call you make to this, you can actually just save it back into the structure here. So diamond hands count equals await freeze accounts. This is going to fail, but because we will not be saving it, or we will not be waiting 100 hours to see this thing work. I think it was a stream ago we had tested it, waited for like 5 seconds, and we were able to unfreeze it. DHA account is going to be this, but I think it needs the provider first. Provider account, token account is just going to be NFT, and that should be it. That's what we should do. Diamond hands, we go to get SPL account, unfreeze assets, and then again, I like to return with this. And instead of DHA, this is going to be DHA account. And just to keep everything kosher, we're just going to call it DHA. So now we should, in tests, just have this function, and we're going to go ahead, and if this doesn't fail, we're going to check to make sure that these numbers match, and we should, if the gods permit it, have a working API now. So if you were to like start creating, the NPN or NPM page, you would give them like some code snippets of, first you have to create the DHA provider, which is one line of code right here, and then you create the account, you wait, and you unfreeze the account. So there's really only 3 functions this thing does, but now we have this really nice wrapper to where we can do everything we need in the matter of 8 lines of code. And if you really want to squeeze it down, I guess technically you could do it in 3. Oh, we need this to be more than 100, so we're going to go ahead and first of all go to diamond hands, and if they don't specify a date or a time to create, we're going to go ahead and days to freeze, we're going to put it at 100, and that should work. And just because there might be a delay of a couple seconds, we're just going to put 1,000 for good measure. 1 second, 10 seconds. Unix, date to Unix times 10 as like a buffer. All right. Now we'll see if this fails the way we want it to. The way we want it to is saying, hey, we can't unfreeze it because it's been longer than, or it hasn't quite been. Okay, we got a custom program error, which isn't a good thing. That means we screwed up something else, and we need to figure out what that is. And of course, it's not going to tell us anything. Token amount, that looks fine. Trying to think of custom. It's giving me nothing. Um, we can go ahead and print the error to see if we get anything else out of it. Let's see. There's always something. Get SPL account. Oh, okay. So that's what it was. Since we were catching the error, we didn't actually ever printed it out. This was our custom error. The assets are still frozen, which is exactly what we were looking for. So we did it. Hooray! This is our cute little API, all nice and bundled up. It should work anywhere you want to put it. I might practice on getting some of these things like out into the public in terms of like public Solana programs anyone can use. I don't think anyone would find this one particularly helpful, but hey, why not? It just becomes kind of a matter of like how much time do you want to spend on this? And here's the other thing I haven't told you is I do have program out there, and it it was like my first program. I really wanted to see what it took to actually bring something to mainnet, and got the program all working, functioning, tests on DevNet, and then I'm like, okay, it's time to actually put just the mainnet. And it was a very simple buy me a coffee program to where people could choose to send the barista some Solana. And I guess you could always just, send someone, Solana over, just any wallet. But this was, again, just a way to figure out how to transfer tokens programmatically. And what I found is to actually get something on mainnet, it's quite expensive. I think that program cost me like 2.5 Sol to like post, and I was stubborn enough to say like, okay, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. So I might post that and write some documentation for it in case anyone wants to use it. But yeah, to get these things to actual mainnet, it is relatively expensive, which I don't think is a bad thing because it really makes people think about what they post as for programs. And if it's not helpful, there's no reason to litter the ecosystem with useless programs like the Solana Coffee one. It's a very expensive, useless-ish program. Useless. It's useless program. But anyway, if this is helpful, I might create documentation and put this up on NPN and just see if people want to use this this program. I doubt it because we'll see. We'll see when we actually create the React app. And we might look at some point into like creating a CLI, just because I haven't spent a whole lot of time creating CLIs or command line interfaces. But I think that would be helpful in terms of like actually developing for this stuff. Plus, this is all kind of leading to my own little project that I've been working on for way too long now. There's this Solana program that I've been making that actually functions as a little bit of a game engine, where it basically facilitates a very simple puzzle game structure, and it's kind of neat. So hopefully I'll be sharing that relatively soon. Um, and when the release is over, I think I'm just gonna make everything available to the public, publish it as a package to see if other people want to play around with it and make their own versions, um, and just kind of keep that up to the public. I think I'm also going to stream the the playthrough of the game as well. So, all right, I think that's it for today. Again, next week we're going to be looking at putting this all on the like on a React app, um, to give it, something that's not just a script that you have to write each time. And soul helpers, I don't think I changed anything, did I? Yeah, I'll just keep it anyway. All right, that's it. Hope you guys have a great day, and we will see you next week. Adios.